Welcome back, everyone. I know it's been a long break to the fantasy football show of the year, hopefully. The Flex Zone, the final flex,
Final flex.
our year in review of everything that was good, bad, and the usual craziness of fantasy football. I know it's been a little while, with Christmas and New Year's, the holidays kind of
Some of us were celebrating. Some of us were wallowing.
Once the fantasy football season kind of ended, it's just like, all right, I can breathe now.
Your life is back.
Family. So, as always, joined by your host, Sohan Ahmad, fantasy football veteran, 20-year expert. And, we did pretty well this year. Joined by my co-host, Rehan Ahmad, co-founder at Poldit. We'll start out with our final accountability check of the year and review. How did we finish? All the trash that we talked, all the advice that we give. Did we back it up? Did we walk the walk? And did we talk the talk? So do we want to invite you? You have a guest on.
Let's invite him. Let's invite him now. This is the best time to kind of talk because I guess he's flexing too. It's a final flex for him as well. So while we're waiting for him to accept the invite, so basically, for all of you who are watching this as a recording or watching this live, basically, it was a head-to-head matchup between me and Sohan in two of our leagues, and in the semifinals. So basically, whoever won went to the finals, and it was tough. Like I think my better team lost to Sohan.
I agree.
Right? But
I agree.
But unfortunately, so I had a league where I had Jalen Hurts really screwed me with him being out with the concussion. It really hurt my team. I had to rely on. Oh, there we go. All right, he's back. Let's always give the guest the floor. All right. Okay, you're good to go.
There we go.
Hey, Ray. So, Ann, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no worries.
Ray, no problem there.
No. This conversation would be completely different if you lost.
If I had lost, I probably never would have spoken to you again. But luckily, I won. I believe the advice I was asking you on, I had Miami and Buffalo's defense and was wondering what you thought would be a better pick. And you went with Miami. So I chose them. And I think they ended up doing pretty much the same in the way the points are calculated in our league. And then what was the other one?
It was Shakur. Khalil, the guy on the Bills, I forget his name. Son, you know his name.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, that's
versus McMillan, your guy on the Bucks.
Come on.
Well,
who did you tell him to go?
You know what, Sohan? I was watching a couple months ago, I think, and you were talking him up, and I was like, yeah, this is a good pickup, and it was available in my league, and I had a couple really great weeks. But in the week in question, I think Shakir, had a couple catches, 20 or 30 yards or something.
Oh, he had a ton of them.
Which, I mean, for a player like that, especially on Buffalo, and I'm a Toronto guy, so the Bills are pretty much our team. Yeah. They just have so many players that they can throw to, and I think even if you look last week in the playoff game against the Broncos, just how many receivers Josh Allen's able to target, week by week, you never know. But I think
we got like 3 touchdowns.
I think he had like 3 touchdowns.
Listen, I hope I would have liked to have given some counter advice in that situation, because I would have definitely told you.
You've given back counter advice.
Jalen McMillan. The only reason I won what I won was because of Jalen McMillan. And I almost beat Rehan if not for Jalen McMillan drop on a 70-yard touchdown. So I would have, but thankfully it worked out for you anyway.
You know why it worked out for you? It's because, look, I saw your team. I think you showed me your team. I have Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs came through in the best way possible. I think you said a kicker, or his kicker ended up doing bad, I think, right?
Yeah, so I was down, I think, 5 or 6 points going into the game. The friend of mine who I was playing had the kicker for Detroit, as well as I think he had Kittle on San Francisco that week. And I actually had a men's league, a beer league hockey game that I was going into, and it was just about 5 minutes, into the third quarter, and I thought about taking my phone out onto the bench with me and like checking in between shifts, but it was pretty improbable. In our league, in the way we calculate points, missing an extra point is minus 3
It's
points.
insane.
Which since they changed the rule and pushed it back, so I mean, a lot more kickers are missing extra points, but he ended up missing 2 extra points. I won the game by I think 6.25 points. So my friend that I was playing, I mean, I'm just visualizing him at home on the couch, just vomiting, seeing Gibbs score the touchdown.
There's nothing worse than losing because of a kicker. There's nothing worse than losing
That's
because
aggressive.
of a kicker.
Minus 3 points for a missed extra point. Like we play proportionally, right? Like you can't lose more points for the points you're trying to get.
Then you can gain, right? Yeah, it's -1 for an extra, -2 for a field goal for us, But
yeah,
that's
I mean,
rough.
the only other negative points you can really get in the way we do it is if your defense, lets up a ton of points, But I don't know. I got back to the dressing room after hockey, and we'd won. We had a good game on the ice, but I checked my phone and saw what happened, and it was just like
sometimes that's the key. You just got to set it, forget it, and like walk
There's
away.
so many games where I had no chance, and I just didn't watch the game, turned my phone off, and then people are texting me left and right, like, is Gary seeing what's going on? I actually won the championship last year on a miracle where I should not have won. And I had Harrison Butker last year, whenever like 16 points, 18
Kicker
points.
again.
So the kickers, man, they end up winning the titles for you, man, like one way or another, on both sides. That's crazy.
That was my mistake, was actually staying up to watch that Washington Atlanta game, because I needed Terry McLaurin to just do regular Terry McLaurin things. Instead, he's like, no, I'm gonna just get 1 catch for 5 yards and do nothing for the rest of the game.
It's that any given Sunday, and you can be as superstitious as you want, or wear your favorite hat.
I want to change that, because any given Sunday, if I got guys that need to do something, they usually play like garbage. That's basically my any given Sunday. But now listen, I'm glad you sidestepped my really terrible advice, and I own up to that advice. But look, I've just been on the fence with McMillan. He's good. With the way Tampa Bay plays, it's kind of like, and listen, he's been on a touchdown like a rampage.
Yeah.
I just assumed, when you play craps or roulette, it's like, it's going to hit red one time, right? I thought that was the game, and apparently it was the game. He just kept hitting black over and over again,
Sometimes you got to ride the flow, man. You got to ride the flow until it finishes. And, that's why I'm not a stat.
It's very analytical, and if you can follow patterns, and you have that's what makes watching the NFL, very fun. If you know what's going on in the league, and you know what the weather is, and who's
you get too deep in the weeds.
The depth chart.
And then somebody who doesn't know what they're doing just kills you with their fantasy team.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to just go with the gut.
But one thing I learned, I think you said something interesting about Josh Allen. I actually think you brought up a great point. I think it's gotten to the point where you can't trust anybody but Josh Allen on that team.
It's like Jordan Love. It's like, there's a couple other guys out there like that, where it's like you don't have the quarterback, you don't want anybody else on that, on the receiving corps, because it's just, you never know week to week what it's going to be like.
Yeah. Well, Ray, you are totally forgiven, and you're we're all very lucky.
Glad to have another winner.
The whole time I was watching the games, I'm like, Shakur, get a touchdown. I was like, I gave this guy advice. I'm not trying to lose credentials in the first season. I'm glad.
Well, no worries. Well, I got to jump, gentlemen, but it's been great watching you this year, and always enjoy the conversation. And I know Ray, we spoke a little bit about the Canadian Football League.
He wants us to
when we
start looking at that.
CFL Fantasy League. I'm with it.
CFL Fantasy is they do have it. It's a little far-fetched. Games are played throughout the week a little more, so it's not like a Sunday Monday kind of thing. But definitely looking forward to hearing you guys chat again next year, and we'll cross our fingers that that our teams keep doing well. And thanks again for all the advice, whether it worked out or not. But it's a pleasure listening to you guys chat, and thank you very much for
definitely. And come on
I
next
appreciate
season,
it,
give your take, invite your friends on. This is about helping other people as well. Or hexing them if you want to bring them on to wish ill will on another team. But that's what this is for.
It's a free space. Yeah. It's a space for
some of the guys in my league could use some help. So so I'm happy to extend that invitation to them. But again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of the chat. And always a pleasure.
All right, take care, man.
Thanks again, Tristan.
All right, so back
All right,
back to our accountability check. So basically, just to finish off on what I was saying, I was playing Sohan. Jalen in my better league, I had a stacked team. I had Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Garrett Wilson, who I will
Bucky
never ever
Irving.
draft again in my life.
Chase Brown, Bucky Irving.
I had this is like, when the Little Giants played the biggest team, or any given Sunday when they just played like that was me, the monster team. But
he was literally the monster
my guy,
team,
I felt like I had the best team in the playoffs, but Sohan is a giant killer. He killed Giants in 2 leagues. He killed me in 1 league, and the other league, he beat the Giants, the Giant team.
I had to face Josh Allen twice
and Jamar Chase
in the same round, and Jamar Chase twice in the playoffs, and Bucky Irving drops in the playoffs, and Chuba Hubbard twice in the playoffs. Like I was, I faced all of them, all the Giants. I think I faced Derrick Henry too once. So I got the better of most of them, but ultimately, like Rehan said, it was our better teams lost because of injuries, right?
Yeah, and losing is subjective. Did you get second place in the other league?
No. So Rehan, he won his finals again. It was again, that was another nail biter too, because the guy you were playing had some monster numbers from Jonathan Taylor, from Josh Jacobs, and his Minnesota guys thankfully didn't, because he was riding heavy on Minnesota, and they didn't.
Oh yeah, don't even remind me. I was down 20 with 2 players left, and at the last second, I had Drake London in. And I was like, "Oh, I need the secure points. Let me put Brian Robinson in." And it was the dumbest move I ever made. I almost sabotaged myself. Brian Robinson ended up with like 7 points, and I only had Jahmyr Gibbs left. So thank God I had Jahmyr Gibbs left. Jahmyr Gibbs ended up with like 25 points, breakaway touchdown.
You were good anyway, man. But Jahmyr would have gotten.
But you know what? You're still sweating bullets when it's the last game season. Anything can happen. He could get hurt. It's also a game they didn't really need. I mean, they wanted to win the game for the seeding aspect of it, but like to your point, I think it was a nail biter. But you helped me a lot, because playing against Jamar Chase and Josh Allen was just like a nightmare I did not want to go through. So
and unfortunately for me, I played Chase the second time in the finals. I did not get as lucky in the finals because I got hit with the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins 52-point combo.
And Terry McLaurin just
plus the Ladd McConkey 25-26. Listen, even despite that, I was in a position to come back and win. Even with, I had injuries to Devon Achane, I had injuries to Tajay Spears.
Got screwed.
I had injuries to all of my running backs in all of my finals teams. James Conner, Joe Mixon, they all got hurt or were playing like crap. And it's only because of Jaden that I came back miraculously and got 3rd place.
What do you end up with, like 45 points or something?
Yeah, I think like 39, like 38 points something. But I literally won by like 0.3 or 4 or something like that, because of the second touchdown to my guy Zach Ertz. And in the league where I was in the finals, I was there. If Terry had just had a Terry game, right, like a regular Terry game, I'm not even talking about like a blowout Terry game. They were playing Atlanta, the 4th worst team against wide receivers, and he got 1 point. The other guy had Michael Penix, who got like 10 points, which was normal. But then Sam Laporta went off and had like 20 points, like he's never done. So he had a lot of guys that just had never done what they did that week through the whole season. They just did it in the finals. So he had, his guys were more clutch than mine, unfortunately. And I ended up losing. But I got 2nd place in that league, and I got 3rd place in the other league. So between the two of us, we went 1, 2, 3. So it's we got all the podiums.
I'm not gonna lie, I spent like a weekend just hating life, because I thought I was trying to go for the 3-peat, man. My Michael Jordan style. I won last year. I won in 1 league, so I got a 2-peat.
We're back to back. That's still pretty.
But still, man, to get that 3 is like the amount of trash talking. It just kind of invents itself.
The annoying thing is that if our better teams had both won against each other, we would have both won the finals, because I would have beat the guy that you beat.
And I would have beat the guy.
And you would have beat the guy that I lost to in the finals. So
don't get me started, man. That guy, I don't even know how he got to the finals with that team he had.
Luck. Pure luck.
You can't be winning in the finals when you got Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix.
To play Michael Penix
in the last Michael Penix in the finals, man. Somebody got to teach these guys how to play fantasy football, for real.
Listen, there's just some people out there that are lucky.
Hey, listen, man. To those people, shame on you. You make it worse for the people like us who do all the work. You ever see the memes? There's a show I used to love called The League. Like, watch it if you guys haven't watched it. this one episode, this guy went off because he's like the fantasy football commissioner. He's like, every day I spent 7 hours studying this stuff, and you don't even set your lineup and you beat me. And that's what it felt like with this guy.
Yeah, it literally did. And unfortunately, I was like, I'm doing it for everybody, and I had a lot of pressure too because a lot of cats was coming at me sideways, chatting in my ear like, "Hey, you got to do this, man. You got to do this for the group."
No, you got to trust your
But then they were talking trash about my team at the same time. So I'm like, "Why are you coming at me with negative energy if you want me to win?"
That's because you're trying to play Bo Nix in the finals, man. You were in the same boat.
Bro, Bo Nix dropped 30 points in the finals. I mean, what
I'm
else
just
could I
saying,
have
his name is
for?
Bo Nix. You put your season on the line for
I
Bo
hear
Nix?
you. I hear you. But listen, sometimes you got to ride the flow. And if not for, yes, Patty, if I had played Patty, he would have had the best game of his season. But I still would have lost with Patty.
Listen, man,
Patty didn't have that much more.
Look, there's
than
two
Bo
types
Nix.
of players, right? You're obviously the hot hand type of player where regardless of name, you're like, okay, this guy's been killing it. Like you did it with Brian Thomas. Yeah. Brian Thomas was a great pick. And we're going to go through all the next section very quickly. Yeah. But essentially, look, there's two ways to play. Me personally, I like going with proven names with activity. They can't be a proven name and sucking. Like, for example, this year we had a lot of proven names who just have been playing like absolute garbage, like DK Metcalf.
Yeah, especially on the wide receiver side. Yeah,
DK Metcalf.
Especially on the wide receiver side.
Yeah, so it happened. So listen, it worked for you. You got to where you got to, right? I know, what is it? Armchair quarterback, Tuesday morning quarterback, whatever the saying is. Yeah. A lot of people on the sidelines are going to say stuff because they're like, why are you playing this guy? But listen, it got you where it got you. So.
And listen, the guy who talked the most trash to me, unfortunately for him, is who lost to me and got me third place. Yeah. So, karma works in mysterious ways, right? So, all right, let's quickly dive into some of the year-end wrap-ups. We'll go through the usual kind of quick hitters. Fantasy MVP of the season. I think we're pretty much in agreement there. For me, it was Saquon. Jamar Chase, you could have gone with Jamar Chase.
They weren't that far off in points, but Saquon edged them in points.
Yeah. Saquon edged him in points, and to me, and Saquon played, pretty much a game and a half less than Jamar did, right?
That's so true.
For me, it was about where were they drafted, right? So Jamar was still drafted on average, right?
Top
I think
six.
It was like 4, 5, 6 spots ahead of
Justin
Saquon.
Jefferson was, I think, consensus higher than Jamar Chase, especially because Jamar Chase had a bad year last year.
Yeah, the Sam Darnold thing though did kind of knock Justin down a little bit, but I think Justin was still
it's
higher
like 1A,
than Jamar.
1B essentially. Like
exactly, Jamar was
I'm
drafted
sorry,
on average.
Tyreek Hill was drafted above all of them.
Tyreek was the highest. Yeah, Tyreek
I think he was the number one wide
Tyreek and
receiver.
CD. It was between Tyreek and CD.
They had absolutely terrible seasons. So
CD killed it in the playoffs for fantasy.
But he had a lot of stinker games.
He had a lot of trash games. Yeah, and it was really down to where for me it was down to who did I pick? Who did you pick later? And Saquon with all his years of injury and the Giants kind of that stink on him. I think a lot of people were.
Well, it's so funny that you say that. I picked Saquon with the second pick in the second round. Sorry. So he came back to me. So I was a number 10 pick in both leagues, by the way. I was a number 10 pick in both leagues. So on the turn, I saw Saquon there. I had to scoop him up.
Yeah.
And
God, how you got Saquon in the second round. And the fact that I took Breece Hall in the first round instead of trusting my gut and going with Saquon. For me, it's like an ex-lover, right? Or ex-girlfriend, right? I got stung by Saquon when I drafted him.
I understand. He destroyed your league one year.
Yeah, so that was what poisoned my thought process. Hopefully you guys were smarter than me on that and didn't let your emotions kind of, take advantage of you there. But for me, I got to give it to Saquon, especially just the dominance that he had against me specifically. He averaged, I think, like 38 points a game against me this year.
This Rams game was against you, I'm pretty sure, when I played you. Like, I remember there was like 2 games where I think back to back or close, like in proximity, I got 30 and 40 against you. But then, okay, so my runner up here is, I think we're in agreement. My runner up was Jahmyr Gibbs. I want to preface, so Jahmyr Gibbs, I also got on the turn on the second round. So one thing before I do want to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon in our first league, the league that I won in, he was drafted 4th. Somebody went way off.
He was drafted
third. Sorry.
Third.
They went way off consensus because he's a homer, a Giants homer. So he picked Saquon and ended up being his best pick. So everybody was laughing at him when he picked Saquon. They're like, wow, I can't believe you picked Saquon that early. But then he had the last laugh because Saquon just dominated. But Jahmyr Gibbs, man, let me tell you, like, he ended up second in fantasy points. If you look at his number, right, this is total fantasy points, right? He ended up second. I think he fantasy points per game. He ended up second. But just think about this. More than half the games he played with Montgomery. Montgomery played with him and he still ended up in second place. if Gibbs and his last couple of games is where we really shine, right? So when did Gibbs get injured? About do you remember?
It was the
I'm
week
sorry,
you
when
played
Monty
me.
got injured.
It was the Monty got injured the week.
Yeah,
you
so
played
right
me
here,
in the
Buffalo.
semifinals.
So from week 15 to week 18, he averaged no less than 23 points, right? And so I did the math on this. He averaged 29.2 games if you added these up and divided them, right? So it just shows you how dynamic he is, how amazing he is. If he had a full season with no Montgomery, right? If he got the same usage as Saquon Barkley, he would be in a different stratosphere, like in terms of the top running backs in the league. Now, obviously, Montgomery's going to be there. He's great. This next year, they're going to still use Montgomery, but I do think there's going to be a split in roles where now it's going to be 1A going to Gibbs, 1B going to Monty. I think they're going to switch roles because now this season, Monty always started the drives. In the first quarter, he would always start, and then Gibbs would come in on the second, and then they would play their roles in terms of game script, right? But I think in the next season, they can't keep Gibbs as a second fiddle. Like he needs to start, and he is way more dynamic from offensive standpoint with him on. So that was my runner up. And I think we talked about Jamar Chase, right? I think you have to mention Jamar.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, he triple crowned it for the receiver position. So I mean, he was fed, and that's what all you could have hoped for. Right. All right. So best rookie of the season. So this one was a little bit of a toss up for me. I originally had Brian Thomas, but then as I was kind of looking back for it, I had to put Jaden on here because, like,
I mean, you can. That's not even an argument. I think it's better to say his skill position.
Like, and that's why I kind of put Brian initially. I'm like, Jaden doesn't even count as a rookie anymore to me.
So let's go with the skill position because I think that's more important.
Yeah. And Brian Thomas, I mean, it didn't start great for him,
it was terrible
because of all the nonsense that the Jaguars do.
Look at this.
But the way he finished, he was a playoff killer.
Well, minus the last game. I mean, week 18 doesn't count, right? Week 17. So look at this stretch. To get over 20 points in the playoffs for a player is amazing. And that he could have won you leagues with his output.
Yeah. And it wasn't against easy defenses either, like, for the most part.
And you know what helped? Not having Pretty Boy.
Oh yeah,
I already forgot his name.
Kirk. What's his name? Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis.
No, I'm talking about the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, who I think is trash, by the way. Like
trash.
The fact that Mac Jones came in and made him like just a superstar just shows you how good Brian Thomas is. And then next year he's going to be a high draft pick. I would actually caution with going with him. Just because I just think it was a recipe for success based on their schedule and just kind of how in shambles the team was this year, right? Like I think they didn't have a running game. Everybody was hurt. It was just like, let's funnel it to our best player. But for me, I think the rookie that I pick, he's a no-brainer in my opinion, Bucky Irving. I mean, Bucky Irving, you watch him on tape, you watch him on the screen.
And that's the only reason I didn't. I was going off of kind of
the fantasy output.
Drafted rookies. Because for me, like Bucky was on the waiver for
in some leagues he was drafted. That's why I actually picked him. Right, there's a lot of hype. Understand, Bucky had a lot of hype in the preseason. Like he was touted as one of the biggest rookies coming out, even though he was a 4th round pick. Just the way he played in camp, the way his play style, they really liked how he played. So I actually was, who else talked about him? You're one of the a famous analyst who's like used to be on ESPN, now has his own podcast on like.
You're talking Matt something. What's his face?
Well, there's some really well-known analysts who are really the ESPN guys that were really high on Bucky Irving in the preseason. So you know what? I took a flyer on him early because I saw him in free agency and I never let him go. Even when he had the bad weeks.
I know. I lost the waiver to you. I remember.
But it just in this tear right here, right? Like he had one bad game against Las Vegas. I actually think he got hurt this game, to be honest. But like in the playoffs, he came through for me. 12, that's great in the playoffs. But 16, 21, this is half PPR. By the way, our numbers are different than this, right? We have bonuses for certain outcomes. So his numbers were a lot higher than this, and he was a rock for my team. So to me, it was Bucky Irving. Who was the best value of the draft to you? The best value pick?
To me, as I was looking through the ADPs again, I think it has to be Baker Mayfield. I mean, Brock Bauer is up there too because he was like they're both like post 10th round, but Baker finished like QB? I don't remember QB.
I can tell you right now,
top 4 QB.
He's QB4 in terms of total fantasy points. In terms of points per game, QB3.
Yeah, and when you consider all the injuries they had, and that Todd Bowles is their
Todd
coach.
Bowles being their-
Right. Right.
And they were a
You
heavy
got
run
him-
team, and he still
Yeah, heavy run
Killed it.
team. And, you got him as like QB 11. So that his ADP was like 13th round or something crazy, 12th round, and he finished QB3. That's insane. Right. That to me, in Brock Bauer, he was also like 10th round. Obviously, he finished TE1. So that's another one. But to me, Baker was the bigger surprise. 'Cause everyone knew Brock Bauer was
Brock
gonna be
Bowers ended up being the best tight end, right? Like I think, he actually took it. Trey McBride, my guy, was third place. But in terms of total fantasy points, but fantasy points per game, George Kittle was still the best. But I agree with Brock Bowers. I will not touch Brock Bowers with a 10-foot pole next year.
No,
I just don't trust the Raiders.
There's a trend in fantasy is that every time someone not named Travis Kelce finishes tight end 1, they do not
It goes-
finish in the top 10
Unless you're Trey
of tight ends
McBride.
next
I
year.
think Trey McBride is a superstar.
Unless you're Trey McBride, he's a rarity. But even with Trey McBride, you saw he got one touchdown.
Listen, the
like 2
touchdowns,
this year,
it sucked.
right? So,
That he didn't get the touchdowns.
Yeah.
But his usage was
there's some curse that goes on there.
Yeah. But his usage was insane. If we look at Trey McBride very quickly, look at the targets. Look, after week 12, after their bye, 15 targets, 12, 14, 10, one bad game, 16, 11. He came through for me so much in my finals. In week 17, he was the reason I won. It's because he ended up finally getting his first touchdown of the season. He saved the best for last. In the finals, he got me his first touchdown, but he also ended up with 12 catches for 123 yards. But it's just,
yeah, and James Conner getting hurt, there's a lot to say about that, and he could have been also a value pick for how well he played this season. Joe Mixon, same thing, but ultimately those are guys I went.
I actually picked my best value pick was Chase Brown. Chase Brown, I got him in the 9th round in one of my leagues. He's probably averaging around the 8 to 9 round mark. I mean, in some leagues, if they're desperate, they go
and
at 7.
the only reason I didn't put him in there because he didn't start for a while.
When he
and it was
started,
really not until the injury, but once he started, it was.
I mean, he down like you couldn't take him off your team, off your starting lineup. And on top of that, Chase Brown is now being projected to be a top 10 player next year because of the usage, the offense, and everything like that. So to me, I understand it's a long season, but once Chase Brown got the starting nod, when it became an even split, he never left my starting lineup.
Yeah. All right. We got to go a little more quickly here. I only got 10 minutes left. Best waiver pick of the season.
I
already said Bucky.
Honorable mention. I put J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins. Yeah. Until he got hurt, he was a beast. 100%. The worst draft pick of the season. I think this is one that
wide
probably
receivers.
There's a lot. You could say the entire round one for the most part, but CMC is an easy one, is an obvious one, but he was hurt.
Yeah, I'm talking about performance.
He wasn't damaging your team because at least he had the decency to be hurt and not play. So for me, it was Cooper Kupp. And you said it. Any other Jet, any Jet you could have had destroyed you, but Cooper Kupp. I'll say Cooper Kupp specifically because never in my life have I seen a healthy 1B on a high offense player get 0 points without being injured. That's just
I don't understand
how
they just stopped throwing to him.
And he played 2 easy matchups. The Jets, the Niners game, there was bad rain. We can make excuses for that. But the Jets and the Cardinals, there was no excuses for that. And to have less than 4 points in both of those games, to me, it was Kupp by far.
Yeah, again, we don't need to show the stats, but any Jet, Devontae Adams ended up killing it second half of the year when the Jets lost their playoff hopes, and Aaron's like, I'm going to hook my boy up, get him everything he needed. Garrett Wilson was such a disappointment. AJ Brown was a disappointment in my opinion. He was hurt for a lot of the season, and then when he came back, he had some sporadic great games, but Jalen Hurts just doesn't throw the ball. You saw it. In the last playoff game, AJ Brown was reading a book on the sideline. That's how bored he was, right? He ended up with like 1 catch or 2 catches. They have turned into a straight running team. So AJ Brown, another disappointment to me. Worst drop of the year. Yeah. Who was your worst drop of the year? I know this.
Yeah. So I normally I have much worse drops. I'm a little more, my trigger finger is a lot itchier. But this year I tried very hard to stay off of it. But I did drop Ryan Thomas in the league that I lost to you in the semifinals. And I dropped him when he damaged his ribs. Yeah. And he had 2 straight weeks of garbage. And then Trevor Lawrence got hurt. I was like, all right, where is this going to go?
So this must be when you dropped him right here.
Yeah, I dropped, and then literally after I dropped him, Mac Jones came in, and then he in the second half of that game, just started peppering Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
Like, thankfully it didn't come back to like hurt me indirectly, but it indirectly hurt me because I didn't have him and I ended up having to play Cooper Kupp. And if I didn't play Cooper Kupp during those playoff weeks, we already saw what Brian Thomas did. There's a good chance I'm in the finals.
Yeah, for me, the worst drop of the year was Lad McConkey. It didn't end up hurting me because the guy I played in the finals ended up playing him.
You still beat the guy.
But the guy who I played in the finals played him, and he had an amazing game. He had 25.4 points against New England. But yeah, I was dumb. When the news broke that DeAndre Hopkins was traded to the Chiefs, I was the guy that scooped him up first thing, and I had one player to drop. And Lad McConkey wasn't playing. He was playing good, but not great. And he had a lot of games where he was just average because of just the way the Chargers played. So I'm like, this is a run-heavy team. They're not going to throw to him a lot. And
well, it timed with the injury of Dobbins. I think really timed with his
ascension. Yeah. So best hex of the year.
Best hex of the year. For me, it's got to be the DeAndre Swift hex.
He completely fell off. I don't know what you did to hex him, man.
His touchdown got called back, or it was in that last game.
No, but I think in the back half of the season, obviously, Caleb struggled so much.
I think he wore down.
Yeah, he didn't have a great, look at this. This is terrible.
That was the big one in a week against Minnesota, I think it was, where he had 9.4 and I had a cushion of like 10.3 or something like that. So that one play saved me. And the guy who I did it to after I won second place, he was sending me some nasty messages. They're like, dude, where are you in all here? What did I do to you?
Yeah, I know. You got a lot of haters. For me, I could name a lot of them, but it's actually not nice to hex and tell, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to hex yourself next year. But Tyreek Hill, Joe Mixon, I've hexed.
Yeah, you got me bad. You got me bad that week.
But all right, so just to wrap up, because I know you have to go, let's talk about the top 5 fantasy players for next season, half PPR. Yeah. So who are your top 5?
Some future outlook. Yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement here. Saquon, Jamar, Bijan, I think are likely to go top 3, barring any kind of offseason news. For me, where I differ with you is I think people are still going to be high on CMC just because of the name. So I think CMC is, even with the injury, he's going to still be ahead of Gibbs in my opinion.
I don't think so. I think he's going to get the Jonathan Taylor treatment. Jonathan Taylor, because he got injured, he dropped in the first round, and you could get him around 8 and 9. I just think CMC's injury, with his age and all these other factors, he's going to get the Derrick Henry treatment.
I agree.
So,
I agree with you logically, and I think that's how it should be. But I just have a feeling like people still have a lot of like blind faith in CMC because when he's in, he's just so amazing that hopefully I'm wrong, but that's how
listen, it could go either way. But yeah, for me, the only difference was Jahmyr Gibbs. Like I mentioned, I'm a Jahmyr Gibbs truther, so I'll always go for Jahmyr Gibbs. And I also think Monty's going to take a lesser role next year.
Right, and that's why I had him after CMC, because it's like we don't know yet what's going to happen with the Monty mix-up. They may trade Monty, they may drop Monty, they may do anything.
He's getting old. So he's got a severe injury. Yeah. So all right, so biggest surprise to finish top 5 in 2025 and half PPR.
Yeah, this is kind of like a very subjective thing, but I'm looking at every draft, there's always like a guy. There's always like one guy, 2 guys who you feel in your gut that they're going to way outperform their draft grade, or they're going to be a top 5 pick, but you can get them in the 3rd round, 4th round, 2nd round. For me, the number 1 guy is Drake London. I think Drake London is going to have like a top 3 finish.
That's why I drafted him in every league I could. He was amazing.
Based on how I've seen him with Michael Penix and how this offense is going to change with Michael Penix there, I don't see how Drake London is not going to be just an absolute beast.
Yeah, I think Michael Penix is going to be a so much better year too. He's good. I like how he plays. He's got a good arm. He has more poise. I mean, Kirk Cousins.
He doesn't get sacked. Yeah, he doesn't get sacked very often. Like he gets rid of the ball. Pretty quickly. And Bucky, to me, the other guy, I think Bucky can crack the top 5 if the way that. Assuming Tampa Bay plays like they did this year again, to me, Rachaad White is going to get the Monty, kind of what you're hoping for the Monty Gibbs kind of situation. Like Rachaad White has got to slide down because Bucky just offers so much more potential than Rachaad White does.
Yeah, I think next year, I only have one, but it all depends. There's a lot of external factors with the draft coming. If the Giants pick a real legitimate quarterback, Malik Neighbors, I mean, he showed you how explosive he is and how dominating he is once he gets the ball. To me, he's like a Brian Thomas. You just give him the ball a million times and he'll produce.
They both played on the same team in college.
Exactly.
They both played for Jaden.
Yeah, exactly. And Jaden knows how to take care of his players. So,
but
that's it.
Yeah, the only QB I'll throw in one QB here, and that to me is Baker. Like Baker finished top 3 with a completely banged up roster. Like if he does this with a healthy roster of Godwin being back and McMillan doing what he's done, there's just so many weapons on Tampa
I'll add a
Bay
QB
right now.
wrinkle. I'll put Bryce Young on this list. I think
I was thinking about him
because
too.
I think you could get Bryce Young cheap next year, and he'll be a guy that's gonna be like a CJ Stroud. Like I would have rather had Bryce Young than CJ Stroud this year, which is terrible. Because CJ Stroud was such a great freshman, rookie quarterback. He had a bad sophomore slump this year. So
100%.
Yeah, but that's
100%. I think he's gonna be a bounce back player of the year.
Yeah, but so that's it. It was a great season, full ups and downs. I think this fantasy, this podcast actually helped me in some cases to make better decisions, because when we started talking through some of the guys, it actually helped me figure out who to play, who not to play. So hopefully for you guys,
help me filter against myself.
Yes, I know, because sometimes I know, Son, you go off the edge sometimes with your players. So I think the voice of reason actually helped in this podcast sometimes. But thank you for all the people that have watched this first season. It's our first season. Next one, we're gonna have the same kind of panel discussions, same waiver wire discussions, things like that. So if you found this content,
and we're gonna start earlier next year, so we'll be doing some pre-draft shows. We can even do a show on our draft days, which I think will be kind of interesting to kind of hear and see the live.
Yeah, and we'll do some mock drafts, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you for everybody who's watching this as a recording or who tuned in to watch us live. Again, next season we're gonna have a lot more content, so feel free to ask us questions. If you want to be a part of the show and you just want to be a part of the podcast, we can figure out how to get you involved. So we've done it with a couple of people who've joined our live streams this year. So it'd be great to have people, kind of engage with us and keep this going.
Yeah, exactly. Participation is huge, and we want that. And again, thanks to everybody who's watched us and listened to us. Thank you for the support. Hopefully bigger and better things for the future.
And hopefully if we get enough people, we can start our own fantasy league where we use this to talk trash on the live streams as well.
Exactly. All right, guys. Until preseason.
Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching.